And welcome back to yet another episode of Dogs on the Couch, where everybody's allowed to have an opinion. It does not matter if you play the game, you are watching. So you're allowed to have an opinion too, all your drunk dads, uncles, cousins, sisters. It does not matter if you were watching. You're allowed to have an opinion as well. Please like, share, subscribe, all that old good stuff. Helps with the algorithm, helps grow the channel. Now, that being said, let's get into it. This past Sunday, we had a heck of a game that was played between the Cleveland Browns and the Denver Broncos. Quick little recap for the game and whatnot. Broncos win. Final score was 41-32. Back and forth game. Very entertaining game for football fans. Just if you're just a fan of football and you love the game of football, this was an extremely entertaining game. So didn't really lack of much as far as excitement and entertainment is concerned. Um, but of course, I have to dive into the Cleveland Brown aspect of it. So, one of the things that I talked about in my last episode was kind of about what the rumblings would be in regards to Jameis Winston after having a solid performance in a blizzard on a Thursday night game against the division rival Pittsburgh Steelers, in which Jameis Winston played a solid game at the quarterback position and ended up helping secure a win for the Cleveland Browns. Okay. And for me, I was just kind of pointing out how everyone would, again, hitch themselves to the Jameis Winston bandwagon, as well as credit Stefanski when the week prior, when they had lost to the New Orleans Saints, I had Stefanski apologists questioning if, his job's on the hot seat, because they felt like, the team had given up, in that New Orleans Saints game. Oh, the team, they're not playing for him or whatever, what have you. Not the obvious reasons you should fire the guy, but because of that. And, lo and behold, number one, I was correct about all of the, Jameis Winston hype train continuing to roll. But I was like, I wonder what the response will be when he yet again shows us the other side of Jameis Winston, because he is who he is. And I was a little surprised, to be honest. I was thinking that there would be more of a logical response to his performance this past Sunday, because it was the mixed bag that Jameis Winston is. All you kept hearing anybody say is the full Jameis Winston experience. My thing is this: every experience with Jameis Winston is the full Jameis Winston experience. It is what it is. It's a roller coaster ride. The entire time that you got that guy going out there at quarterback, it's going to be a roller coaster. It is what it is. So let's take a look at some of his numbers. Because when we recap in the game, he did a great job throwing the ball all over the yard. Jerry Jeudy, I think, recorded the most yards against, when you're playing against your former team. So I think Jerry Jeudy ended up setting that record against, his former team, the Denver Broncos. He was looking all world. He looked elite, if you will. They even start questioning, is Jerry Jeudy a number one? He could be a number one. Elijah Moore had some nice catches in that game. And the Njoku, I think, was targeted 17 times. I think out of them 17 targets, I think he caught 9 of them, maybe, something like that, somewhere around there. He also dropped quite a few easy ones. There were also a few throws that Jameis missed that were just wildly inaccurate. One of them was actually a bomb to Jerry Jeudy that if he had to just put the ball where it was supposed to be, that would have been a touchdown. But again, like I say, overall exciting game. A lot of backing and forthing. At one point, Denver had threw a 80-yard, maybe touchdown, real long touchdown, and everybody's fired up. And then the Browns come right back out. Jameis Winston throw a bomb to Jerry Jeudy, touchdown right back to, it was back and forth. It was great. So now let's dive into what we're here for. Pause. Jameis Winston's numbers for this game, 34 for 58. Maybe not the best completion percentage. If I'm looking at 34 for 58, maybe not the best completion percentage. 497 yards, so essentially 500 yards, 4 touchdowns, but 3 interceptions, 2 of those being a pick 6, and I believe 2 of them also were red zone interceptions. So 2 out of your 3 interceptions were pick 6s, and then 2 out of the 3 of your interceptions occurred in the red zone. So here's my thing. Watching the game and then combining what I saw with the stats, I can't understand Cleveland's stance on Jameis Winston at this point, at this particular junction. Because at this particular junction, just based on the fact that he threw for 500 yards and the team scored over 20 points, just based on that alone, I'm hearing a lot of, oh yeah, we need to extend Jameis Winston right now. We need to go to him right now and give him a 3-year extension. He's the perfect bridge quarterback, et cetera, et cetera. Now, there is a world where I understand that aspect. Oh, and let me add this. They're also saying, see, it's clear as day, Stefanski was not the problem. It was the quarterback. See, he threw for 500 yards. Offense is moving. Offense looks great. It was not Stefanski. It's clear as day now. We can for sure take that away, that it was not, Stefanski was not the problem. I'm hearing a whole bunch of that. Get to that in a minute. With Jameis Winston, even with me seeing, there is a world where I see the whole bridge quarterback thing and him being great for being a bridge quarterback and et cetera, et cetera. There's a world where I see that. There's a world where I see that. However, the world where I see that is the world where the Browns have been since 99, which is mediocrity. You are not competing for a deep playoff run or even, dare I say, Super Bowl aspirations. When, if I'm not mistaken, that's what this team was supposed to be building for. Super Bowl aspirations. Not, well, we're just trying to bridge our way to the next segment of whatever this organization is going through. I thought we was trying to win a Super Bowl. Because before, at the start of this year, at the beginning of this year, you couldn't have told a Browns fan that they wasn't going to, that they didn't have a legit shot to compete to go to the Super Bowl. Not to mention what I've been saying since 2020, your guys are getting older. Your pillar players, your pillar post players, they're getting older. Myles Garrett, Denzel Ward, Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt gone now, balling somewhere else. But your pillar post guys, your offensive linemen, they're getting older. And if I'm Myles Garrett, I'm looking at it like, bruh, I'm trying to win. I don't want to be Joe Thomas. When I go into the Hall of Fame, I want to have more than just one career playoff win. In the 12 years that I played, 13 years that I played, I only got one playoff win. And I done been on all these teams that's had all this talent, that's had buku talent. Because just a week or two ago, a lot of these Cleveland Browns outlets, they were even putting out stuff where they like, well, have we overrated? I think we might have overrated our talent. But then when Jerry Jeudy and Elijah Moore go out there and they Elijah Moore got 100-yard receiving and Jerry Jeudy got 200, that whole tone changed. Now it's, well, Andrew Berry, and I almost agree with that. It's kind of like, you know what? I got to reevaluate Andrew Berry. I do. I got to reevaluate him. I'm not sure. I'm not so sure he should go now. I kind of got to reevaluate him, man. But just a couple weeks ago, maybe we didn't have the talent, blah, blah, blah. The reality for me with Jameis Winston, however, though, is he is what he is, which is an extremely great backup quarterback. That's what he is. He's an extremely great backup quarterback. Because, see, here more so than everywhere else, because everywhere else has done the same thing, but here, his personality has captivated everyone. And if you ask me, and I'm not being down on it, because I love it. I do. I love it. It's entertaining. You know what I mean? It's entertaining. It's kind of like a used car salesman. When he's pitching this stuff to you, it's used car salesman / preacher man. And it's like, you can't hate that guy. You can't hate that guy. He's giving you sound bites. He's giving you pregame speeches. He's calling on the Lord. You can't hate that guy. How can you hate that guy? So like they've just fallen in love with that, and they're just like, oh, see, because the team, the way the team responds to him, and this and that, et cetera, and to a certain degree, I can get on board with that. The main reason though is because you can't be against a guy like that. His personality, what's exuberating from him, you can't shun that away at this point. Like, it's almost like he's so happy that he won't allow you to be down. You know what I mean? Like, some people have that effect. They could just cheer people up. You know what I mean? Or make a bad situation, make good out of a bad situation. Okay? So it's a great thing. It's a great quality to have. However, that quality doesn't win you football games. Okay? Baker Mayfield had a quality while he was here. They loved his bravado. I used to hear him talk about that all the time. His bravado. The bravado. And that, the way he's like, forget you, man. Carries himself a certain way, that bravado. And what I used to tell people, I'm like, okay, but bravado don't win you football games. The play on the field is what wins you the football games, not the bravado. Your personality, that's not what wins you the football games. Aaron Rodgers, in my opinion, has a terrible personality. He took that terrible personality and won a Super Bowl with it. Yeah. His personality wasn't out there completing passes. His talent was, not his personality. It didn't matter. As long as they was winning, his personality didn't matter. When here, what we doing is like we using personality to make excuses for losing. And how we can't blame the quarterback for losing. Because what I didn't hear too much definitive blame and crucifying of Jameis Winston the way that it would have been if it was Deshaun Watson. Even if Deshaun Watson had thrown for that same 500 yards, the fact that he threw 2 pick sixes and then 2 interceptions in the red zone, oh, they'd be going upside that man's head. See, he's terrible. His arm's a noodle. This is why we told you he's terrible. He's trash. He's garbage. He'll never start another game in the NFL as long as he lives. He's no good. He's done. He's washed. The same things I heard him say about Russell Wilson. And how do he look? I'll get into that. I'll get into that in a minute. So, for me personally, when I'm looking at it and, all of the talking heads from Cleveland, oh, there's no way you can't go back to Deshaun after this. Oh, my Jameis Winston. Oh, my Lord, he threw for 500 yards. When, for me, I'm like, okay, so is the goal, what is your goal? Is your goal to have a quarterback throw for 500 yards and touchdowns? Like, that's all the goal is. Like, that's what the goal is. Or is the goal to win football games? Which one is it? That's what I'm trying to figure out. Is the goal to just have a quarterback that throws for a lot of yards and gives great pregame speeches? Is that the goal? Or is the goal to win football games, make deep playoff runs, and possibly compete for Super Bowls? Which one is it? Because if the goal is just to throw for a lot, have a quarterback that throws for a lot of yards, okay, then now I can understand and let me get on board. But I thought we were supposed to be winning games and trying to be a team that goes deep into the playoffs and try to compete for a Super Bowl. That's what I thought we were supposed to be doing with the Cleveland Browns. But apparently, the number one most important thing isn't winning. It's having a quarterback who can throw for 500 yards. That's what it is. I even heard them give excuses like they're like, well, when you throw the ball 58 times, you're going to have interceptions. Well, I can use that as a double-edged sword, because if you're going to use him throwing the ball 58 times to downplay his interceptions, especially 2 pick sixes and 2 of them in the red zone, these are the ultimate sins at the quarterback position. These are the things that get guys out of the league. Throwing 2 pick sixes in the same game and 2 of them in the red zone in the same game. These are the exact reasons why Jameis Winston is a journeyman quarterback. And he's viewed the way he is viewed by the entire NFL except the Cleveland Browns. Let me use that double-edged sword again. If you can use throwing the ball 58 times to wash away his interceptions and say, well, if you're throwing it 58 times, yeah, he's going to throw an interception. Okay, well, then stop glorifying his 500 yards. Because if you throw the ball 60 times, you should get close to 500 yards. You threw the ball 60 times. Make it make sense. Like, pick a side and stay there. That's what I hate about the Cleveland media. About the Cleveland Browns media. The Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. Quincy Carrier. I hate that. Pick a side and stay there. What I be thinking is they be scared to be wrong about some of their opinions or predictions. I'm not. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. And in the same way I get in the camera and talk about stuff that I'm right about, I get in the camera and talk about something that I'm wrong about. Because I'm going to have to readdress Andrew Berry. I think I was wrong about him. I think I was wrong about Andrew Berry. Because I wanted him up out of here. I wanted him gone. Him and Stefanski, package them together, get them out of here. That's what I wanted. Now, for several different reasons, and I'll make another video about that, I might have to readdress this Andrew Berry situation. Jerry Jeudy move looking nice. So I don't know. I might have to reevaluate that. And one of the other Woods, the other wide receiver that was drafted. I don't know. It was just one game. So I don't know. But I might have to readdress that. But again, if we gonna use throwing the ball 58 times, Quincy Carrier, to like justify his interceptions, well then I'm sorry, man. Like I can't get that excited that he threw for 500 yards. Well, you threw the ball 60 times. You should have 500 yards. You threw the ball 60 times, buddy. You should have 500 yards passing, man. It is what it is. So again, for me, it's like the determination to celebrate mediocrity. Because what I kept hearing is, oh, well, I'll take this though, because it was so fun. It was fun to see this. That's what they kept saying. Oh, this was so much fun. It was fun to see this. Now, you heard me say in the beginning when I was assessing the game, yes, it was. It was fun to watch if you're just a fan of the game of football. I 100% agree. It was extremely entertaining. It was fun to watch. However, if you're a fan of the Cleveland Browns, I don't see how you could say that was fun to watch. Because essentially, you know what that says to me when you say that was fun to watch? You know what registered in my mind? You know what I'm hearing? It was fun losing. That's what I hear when you say, oh, it was fun to watch this. I know we lost, but it was so much fun. Well, to me, that sounds like you're saying it was fun losing. And if you a team that's used to winning, you might be able to get away with that. And I'm stretching it by saying that. You might be able to get away with it. Because it's just like, we done won so much. Nigga, we could lose one, you know what I'm saying? Like, we lose one time, you know what I'm saying? Look, it was fun, had a bunch of yards, everybody scoring touchdowns. Like, you know what I'm saying? But we ain't going to make a habit out of this, though. But when you known for losing, at what point does losing like not be fun? Like it's not fun. At what point do you get to where you like, I don't care how many yards you throw for. I'm tired of losing. Because this the way I look at it. Quarterback that throws for 100 yards and looks terrible and you lose. Quarterback that throws for 500 yards, offense look good and you lose. What's the common denominator in these two situations? You lost. So for me, what's the difference? You still lost. You're still a loser. Like, I don't understand. I don't get it. And until you get rid of the loser mentality, I don't understand how you can, you know what I'm saying? Like how you can transform the culture and all of that and become a winning organization. And that's part of the reason why I be saying I don't think Cleveland Browns fans, like I don't think they know what it is to be a winner. Because they ain't won nothing. So it's like you don't know what it takes to be a winner. You don't know that you shouldn't be saying stuff like it was fun like you had fun losing. Oh, it was so fun watching this game. Well, it was. You know you lost, right? And that was fun to you. Wow. Okay. Because again, what that says to me is, well, as long as he just throws for 500 yards and some touchdowns, doesn't really matter whether we win or lose. It's fun to watch. What? Like what? Yeah, if I'm watching two teams that I'm not a fan of either one of them, like, and I don't care. I could care less who wins and who, like, if it's the Chiefs and the Chargers playing, and I'm not invested in either one of these teams. I don't cheer for either one of these teams. And they go back and forth and throwing for 500 yards and a bunch of touchdowns, and then somebody end up looking. It's fun. That's fun to watch. It's entertaining. It's great. This is beautiful. This is wonderful. But I don't have anything invested in either one of these teams. Because if I do and my team loses, I can't say that that's fun. That's not fun to me. That's not fun to me. I have a winning mentality, I have a winner's mentality. That's not fun to me. Losing could never be fun to me. Like, I'm getting a little off by saying this, but they did a couple past players talk crazy about Carmelo Anthony because of that. They was like, when if he had a bad game personally and they won, he'll come back to the locker room, attitude be hung down, not really, into it. Woo, woo, woo. But if he dropped 40 on somebody and they lost, that's not a winner's mentality. It's not. It's not a winning mentality. A winning mentality is anything it takes to win. So if I had to have 0 points this game, but we won, I'm cool with that. I'm a team player. I took one for the team. Whatever it takes for us to win. Period. That's a winning mentality. I want to win. Why would I want to go out there? Oh, yeah, I dropped 50 on them and I lost. Like, dude, then what does it matter that you dropped 50? You lost. Because if I'm on the other side, I'm like, man, you can drop 50 and still lost. I'm finna use it against you. You dropped 50, huh? You dropped 50? Y'all still lost. Trash. You garbage. You dropped 50 and y'all still lost. Make it make sense. Meanwhile, flip side of the coin, you got the Denver Broncos, their quarterback, 18 for 35, terrible completion percentage, 294 yards, nowhere near 500, 1 touchdown, and 2 interceptions. So he threw more interceptions than he did touchdown passes. But I'm pretty sure Denver is okay with Bo Nix right about now. You know why? You know why? Because they won. That's why. Because that's the name of the game. The name of the game is winning, not throw for a bunch of yards. That's not the name of the game. So again, Denver Broncos quarterback Bo Nix, 18 for 35. That's a terrible completion percentage. 294 yards. That's nowhere near 500. 1 touchdown, 2 picks. I guarantee in Denver they not saying that they need to get rid of Bo Nix. You know why? Because he won. That's all that matters. Winning. That's what matters. And then to take it a step further, you would think the way that they talk about like the disparity, the differences between Jameis Winston and, Deshaun Watson, they make it seem like it's just like it's night and day. Now, surface level, there are ways that I could see that as well, and that I agree. Because there were times where Deshaun just looked abysmal. Like, it's times where it looked like, man, like, should he be out there? Does he know what he's doing? There are times where it looked like that. I'm not going to debate that. There were definitely times where it looked like that. However, with that being said, I got one quick stat here. One quick stat. Okay. So, no, actually I got a couple stats. Okay. So first, let me give this, because the way they do Deshaun Watson, I mean, oh my goodness, because when Baker Mayfield had an injury, they caped for him like you wouldn't believe. And every time he went out there and stunk it up and looked bad, they just said, oh, well, he's hurt, he's hurt, he's hurt. We knew Deshaun was coming off shoulder injury, but nobody gave him grace. Nobody gave him grace for that. Nobody was like, man, well, he hurt. Just give him some time. Let him figure it out. You know what I'm saying? Maybe he can just go through this whole year. They've been doing the same thing with Nick Chubb. There's a couple people trying to say like, oh, he's done. But most people is caping for him because they like him. You know, personality. That matters here in Cleveland. So they caping for him. I'm like, well, nah, man, you can't expect him to be. Nah, man, this is all just, he's getting reps. We won't evaluate him until next year. So, first, the way that they crap on Deshaun Watson, they make it seem like he's just absolutely terrible. So, anyway, the Browns' all-time record without Deshaun Watson is 44-62-1. 44-62-1. Losers. By a long shot. Like you 20-some games under 500. Losers. That's precisely what you are. You're losers by that stretch. You're losers. That's what you is. Okay? But when we look at the win-loss record, pull it up right quick. When we looking at the win-loss record for Deshaun Watson compared to Jameis Winston, they're the same. They're actually the same. And I don't mean like number of games, so to speak. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about as far as games under 500, because they haven't both played the same amount of games. Like they haven't both played the same amount of games. So it's hard to, do the comparison like that, because again, they haven't played the same amount of games. But they do have, as far as like records, as far as like 500, how many games over and under. They got the exact same, number. So for example, my bad, it took me a second, I found it. Deshaun Watson has a 9-10 record with the Browns in his career. 9 wins, 10 losses. That's his career record with the Browns. So 19 games, which is basically one full season, because they play 17 games. So one full season in 2 games. I know he's been here a few years, but he still only played in just basically one season worth of games. The record is 9-10. He is 1 game under 500. 1 game under 500. Guess what Jameis Winston's record is as the starting quarterback for the Cleveland Browns? It's 2-3. He is 1 game under 500. He's 1 game under 500. The only difference in the two is that Jameis Winston is just throwing for a bunch of yards, which we know him to do that. If you know anything about Jameis Winston, that's what he does. He throws the ball extremely well too. Like he's going to throw the ball all over the yard. He's going to rack up the numbers. He's going to accumulate passing yards. That's him. He's going to do that. Same way he's going to throw them interceptions. So like he's going to do that. Like I don't understand. Like I mean he's going to do that. But essentially, when we talking about wins and losses, because that's what the game is about, winning and losing. When we talking about wins and losses, they're both 1 game under 500. Both of them. In all the games that they've started for the Browns, they're both 1 game under 500. And let me take it a step further. What nobody is mentioning, because I said earlier I was going to get to this. with the Stefanski thing. Oh, see, one thing that we can know, even though we lost, it's not Stefanski. He's not the problem. See, 500 yards, wide receivers looking great. Whoop-de-whoop-de-whoop. Does anybody realize, and I said this on a previous episode, because I like to stay a little bit ahead of the curve if I can. Does anybody realize that the exact same game that Jameis Winston took over as the starting quarterback, that's the exact same game that Kevin Stefanski decided to give up the play calling? And Ken Dorsey has been the one calling the plays ever since Jameis Winston has been the starting quarterback. So like I said in the previous episode, well, how can I give a fair assessment then? I never saw Deshaun Watson with Ken Dorsey calling the plays. I even at one point had a guy at Quincy Carrier try to say, oh, well, no, Stefanski still has his fingerprint all over this offense. That was after the Baltimore Ravens game. Oh, you can see Stefanski's fingerprint all over this offense. And that's garbage. That's garbage, because we did do a little bit of play action in that game against the Ravens. But as the games have gone on and time has progressed, this past game against the Denver Broncos, all spread, shotgun, throwing the ball all over the yard. Wasn't really no running, no play action, wasn't really no none of that. To the point where they're like, oh, we don't have a running game. And I'm like, okay, the same running game that we didn't have when Deshaun Watson was the quarterback. Because we didn't have a running game then. So you using that to cape for Jameis Winston, but you didn't use that to excuse Deshaun Watson. Make that make sense. We didn't have a running game. The kicker missing kicks. These are all things that I talked about on previous episodes that were all problems that we had. They're still there. Changing the quarterback didn't fix those problems. You don't have a running game. Your kicker is missing kicks. One of the things we could probably say got cleaned up some was the drops by the pass catchers. That's cleaned up a bit. And again, me personally, I credit that more to Ken Dorsey. Because whatever plays that he's calling, whatever schemes he might be drawing up, or whatever plays he's calling that has certain schemes, seems to be getting the wide receivers, in open space with opportunities. Like, that's what it seems like. Because if you look at Stefanski's offense, when he's been calling the plays all the time, you're going to have one wide receiver that get busy. That was Amari Cooper when he was in. You have one wide receiver that get busy. But the rest of it is going to be all tight end heavy. You have one wide receiver that get busy. But since Ken Dorsey been calling the plays, we've had multiple wide receivers getting busy out there. Like, Elijah Moore looked like a completely different player in this game against the Broncos. And truth be told, since Ken Dorsey has been calling the plays. Since Ken Dorsey has been calling the plays, Elijah Moore looked like a different wide receiver. Jerry Jeudy looked like a different wide receiver. Cedric Tillman. Even the Woods guy. Like, when Stefanski is calling the plays, you're not about to see four wide receivers out there getting busy. You've never seen that with Stefanski calling the plays. You'll get one wide receiver that's going to be out there getting busy. That's going to be wide open. You will have one wide receiver. That's it. Ain't no plethora of wide receivers that's just getting busy out there. You will have one. But this game, you had Jeudy with 200 plus yards receiving, and Elijah Moore had 111 yards receiving. And the Njoku, even with him dropping balls, had a nice, I think he might have had 60-some yards, touchdown catch. Might have had 2 touchdown catches, I think, now that I think about it. Like, that's That's a plethora of receivers. Getting Woods making big time catches. Like you don't really see that. Like you don't see that with Stefanski's offense. Like Stefanski, when he calling the plays, it's a lot more vanilla. It's a lot more manila. Like you can kind of see what's coming. Like when he was running them stupid jet sweeps and the one pitch play that he ran where the defender was standing there looking right at it. Like, I seen this play. I know y'all not about to run this because I've been practicing. I saw this in practice. I know you're not about to. They are running it. Boom. Go over there. Tackle for loss. Sack. That's what you get when Stefanski calling the plays. What we know about Ken Dorsey and, from his time with Buffalo. One of the reasons that Buffalo was saying, that he got away from there or whatever, they said he was too pass heavy. He didn't like to run the ball enough. Whereas if you notice, this year, I started with last year and then spilled over into this year. They've been running the ball more. With Cook, with their running back Cook, they've been running. It's more so like a, run first, then we'll do the pass thing with Josh Allen. But we gonna establish this run, and we not gonna veer away from it. We gonna keep this run game going. With Ken Dorsey, he liked to chuck the ball over, spread it out and chuck the ball. That's what he liked, and that's what we've been seeing. Another thing with, the yardage, all of the yards that he's throwing for, the double-edged sword thing, because they love to bring up, the yardage, how many yards he's throwing for, and Deshaun wasn't throwing for that many yards, et cetera, et cetera. He wasn't throwing for that many yards. Well, here's the thing. When Stefanski was calling the plays, if you will, these were your pass attempts for your quarterback. You had 45 attempts against Dallas, 34 against Jacksonville, 37 against the Giants, 32 against Vegas, 28 against Washington, 23 against Philly, and 17 before Watson got hurt against the Bengals. So essentially you have one game where you threw the ball 40 plus times with Deshaun Watson. You have one game where you threw the ball upwards of 40 times with Deshaun Watson. However, when we go to Jameis Winston, in the 5 games that he's played in, 41 pass attempts, 46 pass attempts, 46 pass attempts, 27, and then 58 pass attempts. So Deshaun Watson had one game where he threw the ball over 40 times. One. Jameis Winston, in his 5 starts, only once has he thrown the ball less than 40 times. So again, my thing is this. The same way I use that double-edged sword with the 500 yards. If you're going to use the 58 pass attempts to okay his interceptions, I'm going to use 58 pass attempts to say you should have 500 yards. So when we're talking about the yardage that Deshaun used to throw for and why he can't throw for 300, 400, 500 yards, well, he only had one game where he had 40-plus pass attempts. How you expect to get all these yards if you ain't throwing the ball all over? Like, if you ain't throwing the ball that many times? If he had all these games with 40-plus pass attempts, I'd be with it. It's like, bro, why you can't get over 200 yards, man? What's up? At least give me one 300-yard game. But how can I expect you to have 300 yards, man, if you only got 28 pass attempts? How you getting 300 yards, man, you only got 28 pass attempts? How you getting 300 yards, man, you only got 32 pass attempts? How you getting 300 yards and you only got 34 pass attempts? It don't work like that. Not if you know football. If you know football, it don't work like that. If you only got 24 pass attempts, 23 against Philly, you got 23 pass attempts, how you getting 300 yards out of that? You got 28 pass attempts against Washington. How you getting 300 yards out of that? You're not. Meanwhile, Jameis Winston over here throwing the ball twice that many times every game. Chucking away. We just chucking away. Again, for me, that's a clear semblance in the difference between Stefanski's play calling and Ken Dorsey's play calling. There you go. So again, that's why I say I can't have a proper assessment of Deshaun Watson, good or bad, if I haven't seen him with the other offensive coordinator, with the guy that, truth be told, was supposed to be brought in specifically for him, but never called any plays for him. It's a clear difference in the play calling here. One guy is spreading it out and throwing the ball. The other guy kind of caps. He kind of capped at a certain, around a certain number. Once we hit 30s, 30 to mid 30s, we done. That's it. That's kind of what we get. But with Dorsey, like, we about to throw it 40-something, the minimum. That's the bare minimum we throwing it 40-something times. I'm about to spread this thing out and get it going. Pause. That's what I'm fixing to do. So it's a clear difference in the play calling from Stefanski to Ken Dorsey. So again, when we talk about Winston throwing for all these yards, well, when you got all these pass attempts, you should have high yardage. If you threw the ball 46 times, you should have 200 plus yards passing. You threw the ball 46 times, man. You should have at least 200 yards passing, bro. You threw the ball 46 times, my G. So you should have that. You threw the ball 46 times, my man. You got to make that make sense to me. So, and one more thing I wanted to touch on, because we talked about the running game and how all of a sudden just such a big deal. One of the stats that I saw come on the screen in the game, the Browns were second in the most consecutive games without a 100-yard rusher, and it was 19, the number of games. The only team that was ahead of us was, of course, the Denver Broncos. I believe that's why they brought that stat, why they put that stat on the screen. So again, most consecutive games without a 100-yard rusher, 19, and that would be the Cleveland Browns. Okay. Now, ironic, what I thought to myself as soon as I saw that stat, I'm like, I wonder how many games Nick Chubb was out after his injury. I'm betting it was probably around 19 or close to it. I don't know. But that's the first thing that popped into my mind when I saw that stat. Because for me, one of the things I was telling people all along, one of the things that used to save Stefanski, that would save him, was Nick Chubb. Because when all else failed, you could kind of just like turn around and get a ball to Nick Chubb, and Nick Chubb had this innate ability to break off big runs. You know what I mean? Like, even though his style of running is a wear you down style type of runner, although he does have, he had great agility and mobility as well, but he's more like a wear you down guy. He had an innate ability to break off big runs. So it's like he would essentially save a lot of the times where stuff could go bad, because he'd just break off a big run and score a touchdown. Next thing you know, everybody on the team is back re-energized, rejuvenated, and you back in the game competing. But when you took that away, and especially after, because initially when he got hurt, the rest of that year, it was a do it for Nick Chubb year. So you had some emotion behind, we got a purpose, we doing it for Nick Chubb. But this year, it's not a do it for Nick Chubb thing. Nick Chubb was coming back, like, it's like, all right, you to recoup, you ready, you come back, you know what I'm saying, you reacclimate yourself. But, when it was time to, depend, so to speak, on, we gonna need him to pop off one of them big runs, and he ain't necessarily been doing that, because, in my opinion, he's still kind of getting reacclimated, probably still trying to fight off thoughts about getting, re-injured or anything like that. The fact that he ain't been able to pop off one of those kinds of runs, again, if you ask me, and that's why I say it was smoke and mirrors when Stefanski decided to give up the play calling at the very same time that Jameis Winston became a starting quarterback. Smoke and mirrors, because again, I felt like if he didn't do that and he was calling the plays and it looked ugly, like for example, he was calling the plays and then Jameis Winston get out there and throwing them picks, it was going to look really, 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 really bad on him. So it's kind of like for him to back up into the bushes and get out of the way. Well, you know what? I'm going to let him call the plays. That way I can throw more smoke and mirrors so you can't really be able to point your finger and say, oh, it's you, buddy. Smoke and mirrors. Because a lot of times, again, when they talk about this stuff, they don't bring up the fact that Stefanski gave up the play calling. They still, in some ways, try to give Stefanski credit for the way that the offense is running. He's not the one calling the plays. I'm sorry. He's not the one calling the plays. So I'm not understanding how he's getting credit for that. You're not the play caller, buddy. You the head coach now. You're not the play caller, my man. Like, I don't understand. Like, Mike Tomlin usually don't get credit for, what the offense is doing over there in Pittsburgh. It's going to be the offensive coordinator who's going to either get credit or get killed for his decisions with the play calling on for what the offense looked like. They're not going to blame Mike Tomlin for that because Mike Tomlin he not calling the plays. He not doing that. But somehow over here, even when Stefanski not calling the plays, you want to give him credit for the offense. No. If you give him credit for the offense, give it to Ken Dorsey. That's who deserves it. He the one calling the plays. And judging by the stats that I just read, it's a clear difference in the play calls. One guy seems to be a little more spread out, throw the ball. The other guy seems to kind of have like a cap with certain things. He got a cap with Nick Chubb running the ball. He got him on a snap count. And it seemed like he, with Deshaun Watson, we only throwing the ball so many times. Like when you get to a certain area, all right, we won't do that anymore. So, I'm anxious to see how the rest of this season will end up playing out. But for me to bring it all full circle, back to where we started from, I don't think the Cleveland Browns should be in such this rush to give Jameis Winston a journeyman quarterback. And I'm a fan of Jameis Winston. Let me get that clear. I thought I said that before in one of my previous. I'm a fan of Jameis Winston. I don't want to get this misconstrued. I'm a fan of Jameis Winston. Before he got to Cleveland, before he was a Cleveland Brown, before he was in the NFL, I was a fan of Jameis Winston. Okay, Florida State, Florida rivalry, you know what I'm saying? Florida boy, it is what it is. I'm a fan of Jameis Winston. But being in a rush to give a journeyman quarterback who we know what he is. Some quarterbacks, you be like, we still trying to figure out what he is. We might not necessarily know yet, like what they saying with maybe like a Justin Fields kind of guy, or maybe a Daniel Jones kind of guy, or something like that. We don't really know yet. Jameis Winston, we know what he is. He's a gunslinger who's going to throw interceptions. That's what he is. There ain't no throw that he really can't make. Quincy Carrier makes this statement all the time that I hate. He be like, well, Jameis Winston, he actually doesn't make bad decisions with throwing the ball, even when you could clearly see it was a bad decision to throw the ball there. Well, he doesn't make bad decisions, a bad decision for throwing the ball. It's just he sees it and he doesn't recognize that his arm talent can't make that throw. Well, to me, that's even worse because you've been in the NFL for 10 years and you still haven't figured out, you know what, it looked good, but my arm ain't good enough to make that throw. It's going to be an interception. You've been in the league 10 years and you still haven't figured that out? You still lying to yourself saying, all right, my arm can make this throw and you can't. That's concerning to me, Quincy. That's concerning to me, man. Oh, well, it's not that he's making a bad decision with the ball. It's just his arm talent. That's like saying, well, it's not a bad decision, him shooting that three there. It's just, he doesn't have that range. What? Well, at what point as a player do you start to understand, well, I don't have Steph Curry range, so I'm not going to shoot a three from out there. Chances are I'm not going to make it because I don't have that range. Like, that's delusion at its finest, if you ask me. So basically, Quincy, what you're telling me is I have a delusional quarterback, a quarterback that's going to think that he can make throws that he can't. That's not like, it's not something that I want to have. I'm sorry, I don't want that. I don't want that in my quarter. I don't want a quarterback who doesn't know my arm ain't good enough to make this throw. I don't want that. That's crazy work. I don't want that at quarterback. I'm sorry. I need a quarterback who's competent enough to say, ooh, my arm can't make that throw. Let me make a better decision. Let me make a sound decision. Even if it's just eating the ball and taking a sack. That's better than throwing a pick six. Just eat the ball, take the sack, live to play another down. That's better than throwing a pick six or throwing an interception in the red zone when you got potential to score. So I'm anxious to see how the rest of this season is going to end up playing out because Cleveland media is thirsty to give Jameis Winston a 3-year extension at this particular point. Some people even like, oh my God, you can't wait till the end of the year. He's going to go somewhere else. It's like, bruh, nobody clamoring to give Jameis Winston this fat contract or to give him this 3-year contract. No, they not, bruh. The league knows what Jameis Winston is. He's a gunslinger. He can put up big numbers, but he's going to throw interceptions. So he can win you some games. He can also lose you some. And for me, if I got a choice at the starting quarterback position, I'd rather just take a game manager. A guy that ain't going to win the game, but he's not going to lose it. I'd rather just take that. Yeah, I'd rather just take that. Instead of, a loose cannon out there that don't know that his arm ain't good enough to make that throw and he tried to make it anyway, boom, pick six. I don't want that. I don't need that. That's great when you a middle of the road team, when you not really having any real aspirations. If he was with the Carolina Panthers, I'd be all for it. Like, yes, bridge quarterback, here we go. If he was with one of them kind of teams. But with a team that was supposed to be looking at being a Super Bowl contender, why are we talking about bridge quarterback? Like, why are we talking about that? Because when you talk about bridge quarterback, what essentially that means is we not looking at really being a contender for the next couple years. Well, if I'm Myles Garrett, like, bro, I don't want to hang around while we got a bridge quarterback. Either try to work it out with what we thought was the franchise guy, or what's up with the draft? Because they told me, it's not a strong draft. It's not a strong draft. You'll get a QB out of any draft. Every draft is going to have one QB that's going to turn out to be that guy. You just got to be able to identify who it is. So instead of just saying, this draft isn't good, this draft doesn't have any quarterbacks. Well, who the heck is in next year's draft besides Arch Manning? And if we're looking at Arch Manning just being, truth be told, he being used more with his legs than he is with his arms. Pause. When I be seeing him get in the game, they be gadget plays. He be running. He not in there dropping back, throwing no bombs. Not seeing that from him. And not only that, what other quarterbacks do you hear in his draft class besides just him? At least in this one, we hear 3 main quarterbacks. The Quinn Ewers, Shedeur Sanders, and Cam Ward. With the next draft class, all we hear is Arch Manning. We don't hear about nobody else. And again, a lot of the premier quarterbacks in the league right now was all guys that was picked and thrusted into the position. Justin Herbert. Well, Joe Burrow was probably like one of the ones that was like, you got to have this guy. But before he made the LSU, he wasn't really looked at like that. It wasn't until he went to LSU and won the championship, then he got looked at like that. But Lamar Jackson, who was passed on, they drafted him. Flacco wasn't working out. They just threw the guy out there. Then changed their offense. Like, hey, he run around, so let's make an offense that worked for him. And then boom, they ain't never looked back. Kyler Murray, draft the guy, put him out there. Let's go. Let's see what he got. Put him out there. Let's go. Jaden Daniels, draft him, put him out there. Let's go. Let's see what he got. Jalen Hurts, put him out there. Let's go. Let's see what he got. And Jalen Hurts wasn't this highly touted prospect coming out of college. They didn't, truth be told, really didn't view the guy as an NFL quarterback. And he'd have been to a Super Bowl and been in the MVP race. So there will be a quarterback. You just got to assess and pick the right guy. And with us, if we keep with this Stefanski garbage and not understanding that he's not a good head coach, or I'll say like this. Nope, let me rephrase it. He's mediocre. So it ain't like he's just the worst. He's not trash, but he's mediocre. And he needs players that fits his system. He's not a coach that you just give him the players and then he can figure it out. Like an Andy Reid. Because when Tyreek Hill left, he was just like, well, give me, who else they got? Give me Juju Smith-Schuster. They said they don't want him over there. All right, well, give me him. And I'll scheme up something for him. Give me Mecole Hardman. I'll scheme up something for him. All the way to the Super Bowl. Without a Tyreek Hill. So he did it with a Tyreek Hill and without a Tyreek Hill. So it don't really matter it don't matter. Even without Patrick Mahomes, now he didn't win the Super Bowl, but when he had them other run-of-the-mill, Alex Smith or whatever other quarterbacks he had, he was winning with them. So he can figure it. You just give him the players and he'll figure it out. Stefanski's not one of those guys. He have to have the very exact specific type of play. And for me, that's terrible. That's when you'll get into trouble when you're picking players. Because ideally, when you're picking players in the draft, in my opinion, you should pick the best player available. But with Stefanski, if the best player available doesn't fit your system, then you can't pick the guy. I believe it's a difference in system and scheme. People who are schemers, coaches who are schemers, they don't need specific style players. Just give them a player with some talent and then they'll scheme up something for them. But when you got a system, you need a specific type of player that fits that system. If you don't have that, then it doesn't work. So, again, I'm anxious to see how, the rest of this, season plays out. And, it's going to be one or two things. Jameis Winston will finish the season having more good than bad. And then they'll even clamor more and more and more for him to be the bridge guy. Or you might end up seeing more of the bad Jameis Winston. And then if you end up getting more of the bad Jameis Winston, I can't wait to hear what they got to say. All of the give them an extension now people. I can't wait to hear what they got to say then. Dogs on the couch, signing off.